from IIT Kharagpur, India. And as per the research interest is concerned, my primary research interest include cryptography, network security, and specifically in the network security, I work in the several emerging technology security. One of the areas known as the Internet of Things, known as the IoT security, Internet of Vehicles, known as the IoV security, Internet of Drones, where I'm talking about today. Then also I work on smart grid, smart city, cloud for computing, industrial wireless sensor networks technologies. Apart from that, I have also interest in intrusion detections for detecting malicious nodes in the network. And recently I'm working heavily on blockchain technologies with my PhD students and other research collaborators throughout the world, as well as I am also currently working on the AI ML security. So some of my research highlights are here. So I basically publish mainly in the journal forums, 202 journals of this, and conference 29. Some of them are top conferences. For example, in the 2020, we got to Infocom paper, top forum. Then number of IEEE transactions, journals or IEEE magazines are 65. So also I am also actively involved in the journal editorial board members as well as program committee of several international conferences. Recently, I have been nominated as an associate editor in IEEE System Journals, which is one of the prestigious journals. And also that I am in the editor technical committee member of Computer Communications Elsevier. And it is under process that also I'll be included soon as associate editor in the Journal of Networks and Computer Applications Elsevier. Apart from that, I am also associate editor and editor. I have done also some of the guest editors in some top forums. So for detailed information, so you can look at my personal web page here, listed here, as well as my institute website in the IIIT Hyderabad. So mainly the today's talk, I'll talk basically the three parts. In the first part, I'll go to some basic mathematical preliminaries, mainly focusing on the elliptic curve cryptography and its computational problems. And we'll see that elliptic curve cryptography and its computational problems are strongly related to the blockchain technologies and for formations and verifications of the blocks in the blockchain. Then I'll talk about basics of some blockchain technologies and its various applications. And in the third part, or the part 3, I'll go to a particular case study where I'll discuss about a research work recently done by me and my research collaborators and my PhD students on the blockchain-based secure data delivery and collections mechanisms for 5G-based IoT-enabled Internet of Drones environment. And finally, I'll give some of the pointers for the future research. So if you are interested for any research collaborations with me, so please feel free to contact me via my email address that is given in the first page. So let me talk about the part 1, which is known as the mathematical preliminaries, basically on the ECC part. Now in elliptic curve crypto systems, we are basically interested on a particular elliptic curve which are defined over a prime field known as the Galois field. And this field is renamed by the scientist or mathematicians known as the Galois. That's why he is known as the Galois field, the GFP. So what is the concept behind it here? And we know that a prime number is either divisible by 1 and itself. That means that its divisors are 1, plus minus 1, as well as plus minus that number. And apart from only the 2 as the prime, other all primes are the prime numbers. So let the p greater than 3 be a prime, so that the prime number be trivial, non-trivial prime. And we define an elliptic curve as in the form y square equal to x cube plus x plus b over the Galois field known as the ZP. ZP, the set of all integers starting from the 0, 1 up to p minus 1. In other words, it contains all the elements when a number is divided by p and we are taking their modulus. So So these are basically called the modulus when that number is divided by p. So you know that when a number is divided by p, the remainders are 0, 1 up to p minus 1. And that set we are considering, and that set can be shown. It becomes a field, means that it is a group, it is a ring, then it is a field. Now let us consider all the solutions of this curve. So of the forms x and y, x is the x coordinate, y in the y coordinate. And if we solve all these equations and get all the solutions of these equations, and we'll get a set, let it be denoted by EP, A, comma, B, where A, B are known as the parameters, elliptic parameters, they are constant, such that these conditions 4a cube plus 27b square must be non-zero modulo P. And this is the necessary and sufficient conditions to have these cubic equations have the non-zero solutions. In other words, we are talking that this elliptic curve must be a non-singular elliptic curve. So non-singular elliptic curve means that it has solutions. If it is a singular, if the condition equal to 0, that means that it is singular, it does not have any solutions. And apart from all the solutions, we are taking another point known as the Pesal point, which is farthest from the origin, known as the point at infinity or 0 point. So therefore, that set contains all the solutions of these equations as well as a Pesal point known as the point at infinity or 0 point. Now there are some of the properties are there of elliptic curves, and if we see that the elliptic curve will have roughly p points on it when p is very, very large. And you know that when the p is very large, then the number of primes in the sequence, there will be a big discontinuity between the two prime numbers when the sequence is very large. So that means that when the number you are choosing p to be very large, say 160-bit number, then between any two primes number gap will be very, very arbitrarily large. As a result, that you can predict basically the total number of points in the elliptic curve basically smoothly. However, there is a theorem due to Hasse that asserts that if the number of points on the elliptic curve is denoted by hash of E, then he gave a bound. It is known as the lower bound. It is bounded by the lower bound p plus 1 minus 2 square root of p, and upper bound is limited by p plus 1 2 square root of p. Now we'll tell that if we consider all the points of the elliptic curve, that is xy solutions along with the point in infinity 0 point, that set basically forms an abelian or commutative group under the modulo additions modulo p operations. Now the question is that suppose you are given a point on the elliptic curve having the x coordinate as well as y coordinate, then we need to compute the inverse of the point, which is denoted by the minus p. It is computed as the xp comma minus yp, and where minus y is the additive inverse of y. So for instance, if you take say a prime number p to be chosen as 13, then the inverse of the point 4 comma 2 will be 4 comma minus 2. Since you are doing the modulo 13 operations, once you take modulo 13, every number will be positive. That means the 13 minus 2 will be 11. So in other words, we are telling that minus p of the form which becomes additive inverse of the point p of in the elliptic curve, and the point in infinity 0 is known as the additive identity in elliptic curve. So hence, if we consider the set EP A comma B having the set of all points as well as 0 point as the additive inverse identity, then it forms an abelian group because each and every element in that elliptic curve will have its additive inverse. 0 is the additive identity, and it is easy to verify that it also satisfies the closure property, associative property, and moreover, it is abelian because if you take the 2 points p and q, if you add p and q with the 2 points, the result will be same as the q plus p. Now let us look at that how to add the two elliptic curve points over the finite field GFQ. Okay. Now let us take the 2 points p and q, and we want to find the additive additions of the 2 points p and q. And here the addition is not simple due to the elliptic curve properties. What that you need to do that, draw a straight line that is passing through the P and Q, and let us observe that where that it is touching the elliptic curve, or at the third point, let it be minus R. And if you take its projections or inverse of this point, that is R, becomes basically P plus Q. Now, what will happen if we want to double a point? That means that we want to add P plus P, and P is the same point, that is twice P. Then in that case, what we'll do that, you draw a tangent line passing through the point P, and also observe that where tangent is basically cutting on the elliptic curve, so let it be R. And if you take its projections, it will become the twice P, that is P plus P, which is known as the doubling of a point P on the elliptic curve. So according to the basic geometric simple calculations, if you do calculations and if you take any 2 points P and Q of this form on the elliptic curve, then you can easily compute that R equal to P plus Q additions of them as XR equal to lambda square minus XP minus XQ modulo P, YR equal to lambda into XP minus XR minus YP modulo P, where the lambda will depend when P not equal to minus Q, basically the first case, you are drawing a straight line and seeing that where it is cutting the third point minus R, and you are taking basically the slope of the line when it is passing through the point P and Q, and basically it gives the slope. And in the latter case, that will be the tangent, that slope that becomes basically this one when P equal to Q. Now, apart from that, in the elliptic curve, we will also take a point as the base point. So let G be a base point in the elliptic curve, whose order be n. So order n means that if you do the elliptic curve point multiplications in G, so which means that you are adding the point G to itself n times, and it will give the point n infinity or 0 point. So this is known as the order of the base point G. And please note that in an elliptic curve, there may be several base points, not only a single base point. And if the the prime number P chosen to be very large, there are more base points on the elliptic curve, that is GP A, V. Now, based on this introductory things, we now would like to define some of the computational problem. The here computational problem is that those problems are not solvable in the polynomial time so far. So first we will discuss about a problem which is known as the elliptic curve discrete logarithm problem, known as the EC-DLP. So what does it mean? That suppose that we have an elliptic curve point, elliptic curve that is of the form EP A, B over a prime number, say P, and you are supplied the 2 points, say P and Q, on the elliptic curve, where the Q is of the form Kp, that is the point multiplications or scalar multiplications of the point P K times. And your task is to determine the discrete logarithm K, given that you are supplied P and Q, this one. And please note that this problem is very, very difficult problem, or computationally infeasible problem, or NP hard problem, we call in the NP hard problem, when the prime number P is to be chosen very, very large. And there is no polynomial time available in the literature which can determine the discrete logarithm K in polynomial time given P and Q, the Q is of the form Kp. However, that it is computationally easy to calculate Q given P and Q, because we have efficient algorithms to solve this one, how to basically make it 2 point additions as well as doubling operations. So therefore, we are telling that the elliptic curve discrete logarithm problem is intractable, or NP hard problem, or computational infeasible problem, to determine the Dieskey logarithm k, given the 2 points p and q, when particularly the prime number p is chosen is large. And similar to the problem EC del P, we also define another 2 problems which are also computationally infeasible problem. So the second problem is known as the elliptic curve computational Diffie-Hellman problem known as the CDHP. So elliptic curve computational Diffie-Hellman problem. So let that we are taking a point say P on an elliptic curve, and this problem states that if you are given the 2 points of this form say k1 dot p and k2 dot p, where k1 and k2 are unknown to you, then it is computationally infeasible to compute that k1 k2 dot p, where zp star means that you are taking set of all integers, positive integers a less than p, such that the a is relatively prime to p. That means that the greatest common divisor between a and p equal to 1, and which is nothing but 1 to up to p minus 1. Because if you take the GCD with p and p prime p and 1, that will be 1 p to 1 and p minus 1 equal to 1 because p is prime. So therefore we are getting that zp star as the set excluding 0, and then we are getting that 1 to up to p minus 1. So similar to the elliptic curve computational Diffie-Hellman problem, we are having another problem which is also computational infeasible problem known as the elliptic curve decisional Diffie-Hellman problem known as the ECDDHP. So this problem states that if you are given a point P on the elliptic curve, and also you are given other 3 points, say let it be say K1P, K2P and K3P, where K1, K2 are the randomly chosen numbers from the set ZP star, then whether you can decide whether K3 equal to product of K1, K2 or not, or it is a uniform random value. And this problem becomes intractable when particularly you are choosing the prime number P to be very, very large. Is it clear to all? The elliptic curve Dieskey logarithm problem, CDHP problem, as well as ECDDHP problems. Is it clear to all?
Okay, everybody has muted now.
So, everybody, but they can listen, right?
Yeah, they are listening. If they have any queries, they can put in the chat box.
Okay.
If you want, then there is one query from Arun Kumar.
Yeah.
He asked that, can we use the infeasible K problem to solve the puzzle in blockchain?
Yeah. In fact, in the blockchain, we'll use elliptic curve digital signatures algorithms, and whose security will be based on the elliptic curve Dieskey logarithm problem. In the other words, it is equivalent to finding the Dieskey logarithm k to solve, basically to break the security in the blockchain. So that is basically the equivalent of questions. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we'll go to another part known as the digital signatures, which is basically the heart of the blockchain technologies. And in the blockchain technologies, we are using the elliptic curve digital signature scheme. So before going to the elliptic curve digital signature scheme, let me to describe very briefly what is meant by digital signature. So digital signatures in the very, very similar way when you are signing some document, and that signing of the document cannot be done by anybody else except you. However, anybody can verify your signature whether your signature is valid or not. So in that sense, we are telling that a signature scheme is defined as the 5 tuple consisting of a set P known as the finite set of possible messages to be signed. A is the finite set of all possible signatures which are generated from the messages. And K is the key space, a finite set of possible keys. And if you recall that if a key is n bits, the key space constitutes 2 power n total number of keys in the key space. Then we are having a set known as the set of all possible signing algorithms, and V is known as the set of all possible verifications algorithms. Now let us define what is basically known as the signing algorithm. Now our signing algorithms, if we denoted is the Ck, which is characterized by the a key k known as the signing key, then the signing algorithms will take a plain text message and it will produce a signature in the set A. And whereas the corresponding to each and every signing algorithm, there will be verifications algorithms. What verifications algorithms will do that? It will take the message along with its signatures. Then it will validate the signatures. If the signature is valid, it will return the true value. And if it is invalid, it will return the false value. So hence we are having the two functions known as the one is known as the signature algorithms, another known as the verifications algorithms. And for every that message X belongs to that P set of all the messages, and for every signatures Y belong to the set of all possible signatures, the verifications equations will give the true value, returns the true value if Y is exactly the signature of X using the key K, otherwise it will return the false value. Now if we take the message along with the signature Y, that is called a signed message. So please note that in practice we can't deliver the message in plain text. So either it is the encrypted form of the message or it is the hash value of the message, so that the adversary will not know about the message. Okay. Now we are interested here in the elliptic curve digital signatures algorithms because this forms the basis of the blockchain technology. Elliptic curve digital signatures algorithms, it is known as the ECDSA algorithms, which contains 3 phases. First phase is known as the key generations. Second phase is known as the key generations. Third phase is known as the signature verifications. Now let us first discuss about the first page, which is known as the key generations page. So in this page, so first of all, that domain parameters associated to the elliptic curves are chosen. That means that you are choosing a suitable non-singular elliptic curve EP A comma B, what we defined earlier, over a finite field GFP. You are also taking a base point G whose order is as large as the prime number P, that is N. Then the signer, let it be denoted by A or Alice, will do the following tasks. In the first step, the Alice will select a random or pseudorandom integer k in the interval randomly in between 1 and n-1. So therefore, the A is choosing a random integer k in the range 1 and n-1. So based on the choosing that k, it will compute a elliptic curve point known as the Q, which is equal to k dot g. Now then, what A will do that A will declare its Q as the public key. That means that it is known to each and every participants in the network, including basically the attacker. But A will keep its own private key K as secret, and this is not revealed to anybody. Now key generations phase will involve the following steps. Suppose that Alice has a message M needs to sign. So then what Alice will do that Alice will take the domain parameters, say let it be D, which contains the prime number P, order of the base point G, Q is the public key of the signer, and this is the elliptic curve parameters EPA comma B, and the one-way collision resistant has functions related to H. Then associated key pair key and Q. So this is the private key of the signer, this is the public key of the signers. Then it will do the following tasks. So first, what it is doing, that signer is selecting another random or pseudo-random integer L for each and every message to be signed. Then it is computing the elliptic curve point known as the L dot G. Let it has the two coordinates x1 coordinate x coordinate x1, y coordinates y1. Then it is computing r equal to x1 modulo n. So please note that the elliptic curve that prime number p and n is the order of the base point g, and that's why we need to do modulo n, so that these x1 and r, they are not same. Now if r equal to 0, then we'll go to the step 1. That means that we'll select another number L in order to avoid the singularity problem. Otherwise, that Alice will compute the hash value of the message M as the E, and then it will calculate the signature S on message M using the private key of the signer known as the Alice, as the L inverse, that is the multiplicative inverse of the chosen number L, multiplied with the E plus E is the hash value of the message M plus K R. K is the private key of the signer, R is the basically the x coordinate of the point LG. And if s equal to 0, then we'll go to the step 1. That means that we'll select another number L due to avoidance of the singularity problem. Otherwise, the S signatures on the message M will be treated as the R comma S. These R and S will be known as the signature on the message M. Now let us assume that the Alice A has sent the signed message M and signature R comma S to the verifier or recipient. Now the verifier or recipient has to verify the signatures with only the public values available to him or her. So this is one of the beauty of the digital signature, is that signatures can be easily verified using all the public informations, and no private informations are required in this case. So hence, obviously the attacker will be able to verify the signatures. But another beautiful property of the digital signature is that signature cannot be recreated by anybody else except the signer, because the signature needs the private key of the signer. So therefore, on behalf of the signer, nobody can generate the signature, but anybody can verify the signature. Now in the signature verifications page, what we are telling that suppose the Bob wants to verify the signature R comma S on the message M, then it will take the associated domain parameters, public key Q, then it will follow the following steps. First, it will verify that whether R and S are integers in the interval 1 and n-1. Then it will compute the hash of the received message M known as the E. So after that, it will compute two values, a series of values known as the W equal to S inverse modulo n. S is the basically signature inverse modulo n. U1 equal to EW, E is the hash value of the message M and W is the S inverse modulo n. Another value it will compute U2 equal to RW, R is the received R into W modulo n. Then it will calculate an elliptic curve point known as the X, which is nothing but U1 dot G. This is an elliptic curve point. U2 dot Q, it is elliptic curve point plus it will be the elliptic curve additions. We know how to add the two elliptic curve points, how to multiply the elliptic curve points, say U1 times and U2 times. Now we are telling that if X equal to point and infinity or 0 point, then we will reject the signature. Otherwise, we'll compute that V equal to selected to be X1 modulo n, where X equal to, say, having the X coordinate, Y coordinate either X1 and Y1. And Bob will accept the signature if and only if the computed V is equal to the received R in the signature or not. So interestingly, if you see that all informations are public informations, with the help of the public informations, it is possible to verify the signatures. However, the signatures cannot be recreated by anybody else except the LSA, because that signatures generation requires public key, a private key of the signer. Now let us take the demo how that in network elliptic or digital signatures works for the basically the big prime number. So also you can execute this. So I'm just giving one of the example here. So if you go to this site, is this visible? Screen is visible?
So if you have, you can increase the text size.
Okay, increase the font size, right?
Yeah.
Is it fine?
Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay. Suppose we are selecting something, says SHA-256 hash functions, which will produce the 256 hash functions, and we are generating, say, elliptic curve key pairs. This is known as the private key and public key pairs. Then we are using the SHA as the 256 with the ECDC signatures. Suppose you want to sign a message, say for example, this is say FDP, say at say BIT, say Misra, and we want to sign this message. And if you see that we have got the signed message as the this one, which will contain both the value R and S. Now, if we verify the signatures, either it will give the valid or invalid one. So therefore, we generated the EC key pairs, private key, public key, and using the private key as well as SHA-256, the hash functions, we generated the signed the message on this message as the signature. Now, if we verify the signatures, it is showing that valid ECDC signature is validated. Okay, and how this practically in network security, everything, or blockchain technologies, how it works in practical. Is it clear to everybody?
And anybody having any queries regarding this, please post in the chat box.
Yeah. Any query, anything?
One query is there, how these algorithms relates to blockchain from Ravindra Kerkar, and he has another query is, sir, can show these concepts through diagrammatic demonstrations using one node type of representation tool.
Yeah, we'll give, of course, that we'll give when we'll go to the after some time, and how that elliptic or digital signatures, how these algorithms are related to blockchains, everything will give it. So no issue.
Okay, sir. Proceed, sir.
Yeah. So for the further reading, so I'll suggest that if you are the newcomer in the cryptographic, so better follow the William Stallings books, as well as for good network security treatment. So you can follow the B.A. Farajin book, second book, and also for the system security, network security point of view, you can follow the Bernard Menezes, this book. And for more mathematical treatment, you can follow the Menezes, Senior, as well as Stinson book. And for more about the elliptic curve cryptographic concept and its applications, you can look at the book by the Neil Kovlich, who is the inventor of the elliptic curve crypto systems. Now let us go to the second part, and blockchain technologies and its various applications. So obviously that the questions arises, what is blockchain? And if you look at the term that blockchain, it contains the two words. First word is known as the block, which contains the informations, digital informations, and chain means that the blocks are linked together. So just like that, you have say linked list, a node is attached to another nodes, and so on. But in the linked list, that you can always remove a node and delete or insert a node at any positions of the linked list. But unlike the linked list in the blockchain technology, what supports that once a block is added in the blockchain, you can't remove it from the blockchain. Or even you can't modify the content or information in the blocks also. So hence, no adversary or intruder will be able to either delete the information in the block, modify the information in the blocks, even insert the information in the blocks. But a block in the blockchain can be always verified by anybody, including the attacker. So therefore, there are several reasons why the blockchain has gained so much admirations due to the following reasons. It is not owned by any single entity. So it is in decentralized in nature. And the most importantly that the data is cryptographically stored inside. So means that if your informations are private and confidential, you can encrypt the data inside the block in case of the private blockchain. And even it is not the private blockchain, it is public blockchains, your informations are visible to the anybody, but the informations cannot be modified. That is ensured by cryptographically stored inside, means that with the help of the one-way hash functions as well as elliptic curve digital signatures algorithms, that what we talk about now. We will go to the things soon. So another property that blockchain supports the immutability property, which means that no one can tamper with the data once that is added in the blockchain. And the last property is known as the blockchain provides the transparency so that anyone can track the data if they want to. Because say, for example, I have put some data in the blockchain. At any time, I can track my data, whether my data is modified or not. That will provide the transparency always. Okay. So as a result, that we are having the three pillars in the blockchain technologies. So first pillar is known as the decentralizations. So which means that the information is not stored by a single entity. So in fact, that everybody or everyone in the networks own the informations. And it provides the transparency. It adds extra and much needed level of accountability, which is required by some of the biggest institutions. And third pillar is known as the immutability property, which means that once something has been entered into the blockchain, it cannot be tampered with that blocks or informations with the blocks. So let me to discuss about one of the pillar, which is known as the immutability property. And the immutability property is achieved by the use of cryptographic one-way hash functions. And if you recall that cryptographic one-way hash functions is a many-to-one functions, which will take the arbitrary length input string, but always produces the fixed length output. For example, we are having the SHA-256 algorithms, that is the secure hash standards algorithms 256, which will take arbitrary length message size, but it will always produce the 256 hash output or message digest. That output length is fixed. Now, why that cryptographic hash functions provides immutability? Because in the blockchain or blocks, we use the cryptographic hash functions to ensure that the data cannot be tampered with that. So in the first table example, suppose we are having the input high, we'll have the hash output as the 256 output, which are written in the hexadecimal format. And suppose you are having another, say, input as the welcome to block break, say, glad to have you here, will get the hash output. Suppose that you are having an input, say, this is test, you are having the hash output, and say somebody wants to say change even a character or a single bit of the input value. See, for example, uppercase T to the lowercase t, adversary wants to change, but even if he wants to change it, the hash value will be completely different. So which means that the one hash function is very, very sensitive to small perturbations of the input strings. So hence, even a single bit of the message is changed, the hash value will be completely different and it will give the mismatch value. And due to the one-way cryptography hash functions blockchain that satisfies immutability property. Now let us talk about types of blockchains. So we are having basically the three types of blockchains. One is known as the public blockchain. In case of the public blockchains, anybody can access inside the block and like that. But in case of the private blockchains, only some privileged that nodes will be able to access or insert the blocks in the blockchain. And sometimes we may require a hybrid kinds of blockchain known as the consortium blockchains, where you can have some public information along with the confidential information. So therefore here a group of that owners will be responsible for maintaining the blockchains. Now if we look at a particular block in the blockchain, just like your say IP head or IP packets, we are having block header and block payload. And if you look at the block header, it will contain something known as the block versions, which is a unique serial number of the block. Then it will have the previous hash block known as the PB hash. So previous hash block means that the hash of the previous block. Now it is noted that when a blockchain will start, so it will start from the first block. That block is known as the genesis block. And for the genesis block, the previous hash value will be always the 0 because there is no block that prior to that genesis block. In that case, that previous hash value will be 0. Then we are having another concept known as the Marklet root. We will talk about later. So how to construct the Marklet root from the list of transactions available in the block payload and how to also verify it. Then we'll need to specify the block type, whether it is public, private, and consortium. So let it be public. And the timestamp will give the timestamp of block creations. And owner of the block, that will basically give the who owns the block in the blockchain. And we also require the public key of the signer that is required to verify the signatures. And this is known as the elliptic curve digital signatures algorithms. We are generating the signatures. So in case of the public blockchains, all the transactions let it contains the NT number of transactions. Say TX1, TX2, TXN, all transactions are written in the plain text because they are public. Anybody can view the transactions. And based on all the transactions, we are computing the Marklet root MTR. After that, we'll compute the current hash block hash of basically the block headers fields as well as all the transactions. So once the current hash block is computed, we'll compute that basically owner will compute the signature on block using the elliptic curve digital signatures generations algorithms. Let it be B sign with using the private key of the signer. And since we have stored the public key of the signer, anybody can verify the elliptic curve signatures. Anybody can verify by recomputing the hash of the block header as well as payload. Can check whether the computed hash value matches with the stored hash value or not. And also that anybody can verify the transactions using the Marklet root that given in the block header. So if we go to the private blockchains, where the transactions are not in public. So let us take the example of the say healthcare applications where the patient's informations are vital and confidential. We can't leak in the public. Therefore, all the informations are encrypted. So in case of say public blockchains, we are having say transportation intelligence systems where anybody can see what are the traffic pattern where they are in some part of the city, other things they put in the blockchain. Anybody can check whether the traffic patterns are genuinely put in the blockchain or not by verifying the blocks, then can view already the traffic patterns. But in case of sensitive applications, healthcare applications, say military applications or battlefield surveillance, we can't put all the transactions to be in public. Therefore, they must be encrypted format. So therefore, this is the only exceptions where the transactions are encrypted, here the encrypted in case of the private blockchain. Now there will be certain scenario where you can have the hybrid kinds of stuff where some of the transactions you need to be kept secret, but other transactions need to be in plain text. It does not matter if the public view it. So in that case, we'll call this blockchain either consortium or hybrid blockchain. So therefore, the structure of the blocks vary mainly in the payload based on the public blockchain, private blockchain, and hybrid that blockchain. Is it clear to all? Is it clear?
If anybody having any queries, please put in the chat box.
So now you have understood that the role of cryptography hash functions as well as elliptic or digital signatures algorithms, what we talk about that in the blockchain applications.
Sir, one query is there,
Yeah.
Examples of hybrid blockchain.
Yeah. So example of hybrid blockchain, if you look at, say one of the applications of the vehicular ad hoc networks, and which we are talking about here are the Internet of Vehicles applications. So Internet of Vehicle applications usually applied for the smart city environment, where that all vehicles gather informations. Those informations are gathered by the nearby RSU roadside unit. Roadside unit will give the informations to the attached local fog server. Fog server will form the partial blocks, and it will give the blockchain centers cloud centers. Cloud centers will mine those blocks and add to the blockchain. So if you see that here, based on the several applications in the smart city, some of the informations could be highly confidential. They could be put in the confidential by encrypted format, and some other informations need not to be put in the confidential. They could be private. So for example, say there is an accident takes place, and I am sitting in a car as a driver. I can my vehicle can take a picture, and that picture can be securely transmitted to the RSU with my source, and that information can be put in the blockchain, even public. So since we are putting the informations in the blockchain, so nobody can modify my data, and anybody can see that where accident takes place, whether it is genuine or not, and something happens or not. So for example, if there is a court case letter, so the accident takes place due to which genuine reason, that could be easily verified with the blockchain technologies. So whereas if we do not use the blockchain technologies, we simply add in the some server maintained by some police commissioner server, and there is a
Hello, is it okay now? Hello,
Hello.
is it okay now?
Please
Good
unmute
afternoon,
yourself.
students.
Hello?
Am I audible now?
Please mute yourself.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Vandana madam, please mute yourself.
Fine, thank you. Let us start with our today's session.
Vandana madam,
Can you tell me which topic we have fully covered in last lecture?
Yeah.
okay,
should
sir,
I
you
go?
carry on. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So that will be an example that we are telling that say if information are stored in commissioner at server, and there may be a fraud that due to some reasons even commissioner admin can change the information stored in the server. But whereas if the same information is put in the blockchain, and since the blockchain is maintained by several cloud servers, and there will be no fraud can happen, because the block will be added due to some voting mechanisms known as the consensus algorithms that we are going to discuss now. So assume that now a block is created, having the transactions, having all these fields. Now the question is that how this block can be added in the blockchain. And that is done due to a mechanism known as the consensus mechanisms, and it is responsible for verifying the transactional data in the blocks and between the nodes in a peer-to-peer networks. So meaning that we are assuming that there is a networks of peer nodes, say for example a set of cloud server nodes, and they are calling it the peer nodes because they will be giving the equal priority, or we will have the same privilege, and they can communicate each other. That's why any entity can communicate to any other entity in the network. That's why it is known as the peer-to-peer network. So therefore, the consensus mechanisms is important, that part of the blockchains which will allow to verify a block by its peer nodes in the peer-to-peer network, and based on the majority of the consensus given by its peer node, and it will determine whether that block can be added into the blockchain or not. However, once the block is added in the blockchain or committed, the block cannot be later modified, deleted from the blockchain. So in this regard, that there are several consensus algorithms are there. So let me to discuss briefly here. First is known as the Byzantine fault tolerance algorithms. So it is an agreement protocol which helps to create the Byzantine failures or faulty nodes or malicious nodes in a network, and it maintains the reliable records of transactions in a transparent and tamper-proof way, as long as the number of faulty or malicious node does not exceed 1/3 of the general network nodes. So this is the conditions that even some of the nodes are faulty or malicious or traitors, as long as no more than 1/3 of the general networks nodes in the peer-to-peer networks are corrupted, the Byzantine fault tolerance algorithms will allow you to add the block in the blockchain. Then we have practical Byzantine fault tolerance algorithms. It is basically the improved versions of the PBFT, where the BFT that fails to tolerate the fault in the network systems, whereas the PBFT algorithms works in asynchronous systems, and it was designed to optimize to achieve high performance along with the impressive overhead runtimes. So the question is that, say for example, take a block in the blockchain, how to add the block in the blockchains. The following procedures are followed in the PBFT algorithms. So assume that there is a peer-to-peer network, PP2 network, and among the peer-to-peer nodes in the network, a node needs to be selected as the leader, and which needs to be act as the miner node. And miner node responsibility to mine the node in the peer-to-peer network, to be verified by that block by the peer nodes, and that nodes needs to be added in the blockchain. So assume that there is a leader selection algorithms, maybe by the round robin fashions, a node will be selected as the peer node, and who will be responsible to add that block in the blockchain. Now what the leader will see, that leader will first receive the block from the a peer node who has the block to be added. Then the leader will send that block to every node in the network for verifying the transactions. Now the verifying the transactions, if you see, the transactions can be verified by the 3 levels. First level is that verifying the market root in the block. Second level of verification is known as the current block has verifications. Third level of verification is that signature, elliptic or digital signatures algorithms. You know that how to verify the ECDSA signatures. And if the 3 levels of verification passes, then only each received node will send a valid reply to the leader node for adding that block. Suppose that leader node is say maintaining a counter known as the valid reply counter or count, which is initially 0, and for each and every that valid the reply from the peer node, it will increment the counter. And if the counter that exceeds the threshold value, that is 2NF plus 1, where NF is the number of faulty nodes in the network, and this is the threshold requirement required for the practical bijunctional fault tolerance algorithms, then the leader will commit that block. It will add its block in its ledger, and also it will send a commit message to all other PR nodes, so that all other PR nodes can also add that block to their local ledgers, because it is the distributed blockchain is the distributed. That same information is added to all the blockchains maintained by the local ledgers of the nodes for backup purpose. Then we are having the Ripple protocol consensus algorithms known as the RPCA. So fortunately, the TIIT Hyderabad has now Center for Excellence in Blockchain, which is sponsored by the Ripple, that company, US company. And throughout the world, they have sponsored the 12 institutes or organizations for this part. And TIIT Hyderabad and IIT Bombay are the two institutes from India. They have given these tags. And fortunately, I am also one of the member of the blockchain centers in TIIT Hyderabad. And they have given the 7 crores fund for promoting the research. And we have a strong research groups in blockchains in TIIT Hyderabad. So anyway, so Ripple consensus algorithms, that how does it work? It is also a voting process. And each participating node in the peer-to-peer network maintains a unique node list known as the UNL, and which is considered the trusted one. Then the following that protocol executes the following steps. In the voting process, each participant's nodes constantly receiving a transactions. If the transactions is valid, then the node integrates the transactions to a set of list known as the candidate list. So then each participant's node dispatches its candidates set to other participants as a proposal. So once the participating node that receives the proposal from other nodes, then it will check its UNL, and if it is valid, then the participating node sends the transactions that it gains more than 50% of the votings than the others. So therefore, the minimal criteria is known as the 50% of the votes it needs to gather from its peer node, and then it will go to the basically the probing stage. That means that it will increase then the 60%, and then it will wait until it reaches to the 80% threshold value of the vote. So therefore, RPC algorithms require that threshold value 80% of the votes, valid votes, are required in the peer-to-peer network. And once it is satisfied, then the participating nodes record the transactions confirmed, and it will be added in the block in the blockchain. Then we are having the proof of work, that is known as the POW, which is the original consensus algorithms used to verify the transactions and produce the new blocks in the blockchain. And it is basically used in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency purpose. But the major drawback of this consensus algorithms is that it is very, very resource consuming or power consuming, because it based on the solving mathematical projects. Then in 2017, to improve the performance of the POW, Ethereum basically proposed algorithms known as the proof of stack algorithms. So which basically efficient than the POW. Now let us talk about a scenario that how a block can be created and added using the consensus algorithms in blockchains. Let us talk about in the context of the Bitcoins. Suppose that someone or Alice has initiated request transactions in terms of Bitcoin, and that this Bitcoin needs to add in the blockchain. So therefore, what it will do, that Alice will send that transactions to the this Bitcoin will be sent to each and every that PR node in the network. Then it will run a consensus algorithms, for example, POW algorithms. Then it will validate the transactions. If the transactions is verified successfully, then the transactions will be added to a newly created block in the blockchain, and the process is complete. Okay. So the next question is that we talk about the Marklet root and how Marklet root is constructed. So it is a special kind of binary tree. Suppose you are having the transactions A, transactions 1 to transactions n. So what we'll do that for each and every transactions we first calculate the hash values. Then the hash values will be again clubbed either using the bitwise XOR operations or concatenations of the hash values. We'll get the hash 1, 2, then hash 3, 4, hash 4, 5, 6, hash 7, 8. Then again we'll in the upper layer we'll do the hash 1, 2, hash 1, 3, either the concatenations or bitwise XOR will get the hash 1, 2, 3, hash 5, 6, 7, 8, and finally we'll get the Marklet root. We'll get it. And this Marklet root is now, along with this construction of the tree, is now added in the Marklet root field in the block. So therefore, let us take the scenario, the use of Marklet tree root in the blockchain. So therefore, let us take the simple example here. Say block 1 header contains the previous header has as well as Marklet root. Block 2 and block 3 there. And block 2 has 4 transactions A, B, C, and D. And it construct the Marklet root by hash of A, hash of B, then concatenations of the hash values, concatenations of the hash value, then Marklet root will be the concatenations of the hash and hash. So this Marklet root is now stored in the block. So next question is that given a block, so how to verify that whether one or more transactions are valid or not in the blockchain. So therefore, this is the procedure, and it is done in the order of log n time for verifying a transactions using Marklet tree root concept. Suppose that we want to verify a transaction say Y in the blockchain. So therefore, we know that already that Marklet tree is already stored in the block. So then what we'll do that we'll only simply compute the hash of transactions Y, and we know that a hash of Z is available. Then we'll simply make the concatenation of the hash. We'll get the hash of YZ. Then we'll take the corresponding that hash of WX without computing these values. Then we will do the concatenation of the hash value. We'll get the root. Then we'll check whether the recalculated the Marklet T root matches with the T root which is stored in the block. And if they match, it ensures that the informations in the block or transactions in the block have not been modified or updated by any adversary in the blockchain. And as a result, if somebody wants to say update any transactions, and he needs to change the Marklet root, and also he needs to change the current hash value, that what is known as the ECDSA signatures, and also it will affect all the previous hash blocks, also that subsequent hash blocks, subsequent blocks in the blockchain. So hence it is not easy to modify the informations by any adversary in the blocks in the blockchain due to the immutability property and due to the one-way hash functions property as well as elliptic curve digital signatures algorithms. Now we'll give several applications of the blockchain technologies. And if you notice that initially that blockchain was introduced for Bitcoins as cryptocurrency, but unfortunately due to government policy in India and other places, other country, that does not become popular, because if you look at the Bitcoins or cryptocurrency, and what current scenario is that if I want to say take some goods from some merchant, I want to use my credit cards, then it should go through some the payment gateway, and the payment gateway involve and the payment gateway requires some commissions during the transactions. But if we allow the Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, then the payment gateway will not be involved. Alice can directly pay to the Bob whatever money he wants to do. And due to that, several political issues or some financial issues, that government did not approve it. However, that the blockchain technologies was found that it is also very, very applicable to almost every domain, starting from the civilian applications to the military applications. And fortunately, that China is much ahead from India, because their banking systems, military systems, everywhere they have totally implemented the blockchain technologies. And one of the things that we have been meeting recently, before 6 months, with the National Advisory Secretary of Government of India, and they are fearing about basically the cyber security now rather than the physical attack to India. Because if the cyber security becomes so vulnerable, and say, for example, if your RBI or some other defense systems is hacked, then the country will be basically the almost stopped. Okay. So therefore, it is very, very important to promote the cyber security as well as blockchain technologies to each and every, that at least for defense finance systems in India, so that cyber security can be basically can be vision. So anyway, so we are having several applications. So for example, it could be used in the supply chain. It could be the food industry. It could be the say smart manufacturing, smart grids, healthcare applications, Internet of Vehicles, and UAV, unmanned aerial vehicles known as the Internet of Drones, where I am going to discuss one of the applications here. So for the more blockchain applications, so please go through the one of my paper recently with my collaborators as well as research students. So first paper that I'll present here, briefly, which was published in the top forum, IEEE Transactions on Vehicular Technologies. And then second one is also on the supply chain management using blockchain technologies, which was also published in the top forum, IEEE Transactions on Industrial Informatics. Then also we talk about access control in the generic IoT environment, which in the wheelie transactions on emerging telecom systems. Then also we are having some blockchain-based access control scheme in IoT-enabled Internet of Drones deployment in computer communications Elsevier. Yeah, any questions, anything? So before going to that part.
So one query is there from Dr.
Yeah.
Arun Kumar. If reply attack is successful, RPCA can still perform.
What about reply attack when other nodes sending a reply to the attacker? Yeah, so to avoid the reply attack, so we'll show in our consensus algorithms that we have used both the random nodes as well as timestamp, so that the reply attack cannot be succeeded. And this could not be possible. We'll show it.
Now, I have one question, sir.
Yeah.
Is proof of work is required for permissioned blockchain?
Yeah.
Is proof of work is required for permissioned blockchain?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
it
yeah.
permissionless, but permissioned blockchain, is it required?
Proof of work and proof of stake, basically they are used for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Hence, they are for permissionless blockchains networks. Okay. And if you want to use that for permissioned blockchain, therefore it is better to go for the PBFT or RPCA algorithms, consensus algorithms. It is better.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. But still you can use the POW or POS, but you require the modifications in the consensus, same consensus algorithms, you can't use it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so then I'll go to the next part, last part, where I'll present a very, very recent work, research work that is done by my research student, PhD students, that Basudev and Saurabh, and my research collaborators Niraj, Pascal Lorenz, as well as Mohamed Alajeb from Italy, as well as Australia. So this is the title of the paper, that blockchain envisions secure data delivery and collection scheme for 5G based IoT enabled Internet of Drones applications. So first of all, let me describe very little bit what is Internet of Drones. So it is considered as a layered network control architectures, and primarily it is designed to correlate access of unmanned aerial vehicles, which are also known as the drones, which are responsible for controlling airspace as well as providing support to various navigations activities. And in recent years, that it is seen that due to increase of the commercial drone applications, it is used in several places. For example, it used in the traffic management place, it is used in the battlefield surveillance, and so many places. And recent forecast that indicate that there will be $100 billion market opportunity will be there in coming years based on the drones. So therefore, there is a huge market of drones will be expected in coming years, and hence that drones applications is huge that will be used from the civilian applications to the military applications. So therefore, the civil applications of the drones are there, ranging from the military, say news gathering, for example, videography, as well as photography, security, agriculture, logistic deployment, surveillance, medicines to traffic monitoring applications. And nowadays, drone will be very, very useful where we have a paper in the COVID situations recently to the ACM conference that we use the drones to deliver the medical items to the fellows who say what are some medicines, so that the drones could be used in order to say reduce the contact of human to human face, other things. So therefore, these are useful, very, very useful using the drones, which could be used for healthcare applications, traffic monitoring systems, and up to the battlefield surveillance. So therefore, that question is that why do we need the secure delivery and collections, the mechanisms? Now, in recent years, what we have observed that a drone delivery service has been established in London due to people demands, which permits to exchange the packages weighing say up to 500 grams. In addition, say German's express delivery company known as the DHL also is the drones for the emergency delivery, for example, high priority goods like medicines to remote areas, where say the going to that place is not easy. So you can use the drones to deliver the goods. And a delivery system in the IoT environment was built on the trust that delivery service provider as well as their customer will be trusted. But in practice, it is not so. So hence, due to such reasons, security plays a very important role in the IoT environment. And this focus and this motivated us to design a secure delivery as well as collections mechanisms with the help of the deep learned door. And two, that maintain the several security requirements, for example, confidentiality is required, authentications, access control, non-repudiations, availability, freshness is required, as well as that we also face the several security challenges in IoT environment. For example, there may be possibility to remote hijacking of the drones by enemy, and there is a concern of the privacy maintained while delivering the goods. Replay man in the middle attacks, impersonation attacks, privilege insider attack means that a trusted that centers some privileged users can misuse the informations. And physical, the drone capture attack, once a drone is physically captured, all informations will be known to the attacker. That attacker can use those informations to mount other attacks in the networks. And those kind of several issues are there, and this work basically is an attempt to address these requirements in the IoT environment that uses blockchain technologies. So this is basically a scenario where we are telling that say we are having several applications, for example, the logistic delivery applications where the goods will be delivered in houses, and hospital say applications is there where the medicines will be distributed or delivered here. So traffic management or monitoring systems where traffic can be monitored using the drones, deployed drones. So agriculture and the applications there with the agriculture field can be monitored to the drone, and all the information need to be brought to their ground station server. And of course we want these informations to be securely brought to the ground station server securely, so that the tampering of the data should not take place at the first place. Then we are having the registration authority, which is responsible for registering initially to the control room. Control room task is to instruct a drone via the GSS, and also control room will be responsible for registering the GSS as well as drones in some particular applications. And the registering authority basically will be responsible for registering the control rooms in the networks. So what is the idea is here that suppose the informations are securely gathered by the GSS, and the GSS from blocks from the using the transactions data, and since the drone data are private confidential, we here assume to be the private blockchain, and private blocks they will be mined by a peer-to-peer node known as the GSS P2P node. And after that mining is done, then the blockchain block will be added in the blockchain center. So therefore, the several pages of this I'm going very briefly here because I'll supply that paper. You can go through the letter, and it will have the system initialization phase, which will be responsible for initializing the system parameters in the systems. Registration phase, obviously, that will be responsible for registering that your control room, ground station server as well as drones in various applications. Access control phase will allow to establish, authenticate that the drone and GSS each other establishes session key. Using the session key, they can communicate each other. And secure delivery and collections page using the session key, they will take instructions from the say control room, deliver the data, and it will collect the confirmations received, and it will be coming to the GSS. Then we'll talk about the block, how to create a block, verify block, add block in the blockchains, in the blockchain centers. Finally, that how the dynamic notations could be added when a drone can be hijacked or physically captured by enemy. Therefore, we need to redeploy some of the drones. And one of the important properties is that the scheme needs to be designed in such a way that even a drone is physically compromised, those information should not leak to compromise the secure communications with the other non-compromised drones in the network. That is one of the prime that concerns that exist in the secure data delivery as well as collection that case. So this is the overall process. What we are telling that first there is a control room which will the request for registration request to the registration authority. Registration authority validates its credentials, and then it will accept or reject. Based on that, it will send the registration credentials securely to the control room. Then the control room will be responsible for the registering each and every drone in the network as well as GSS based on the applications. And for that purpose, that control room will offline do the registrations of the every drone. That means that all the credentials, unique credentials, will be stored in the drone's memory, and it will be deployed in the target field. And also similarly, that ground station server that first will send the registration request to the control room. Control room will verify the registration details. Then it will accept or reject. Based on that, it will send the registration credentials securely to the ground station server. So once those are deployed in the network, then the drone and registration ground station that they will basically do what is known as the access control, followed by the secure data delivery collection page. So in that case, first it will send the access control request message to the GSS, and it will verify the message, and it will send that access control response message to the drone. Drone will verify, and they will establish the both session key, common session key, and as an acknowledgement, it will send also a message tree to the ground session, so that mutual authentication takes place, and both will basically store the same session key for the secure communications. Now, using the session key, established session key, they can exchange the data securely using the established session key. So once that ground station receives all the secure informations, and we'll tell that then ground station will collect the data securely from the respective flying zones, create transactions from the generated secure data. We also give the details how to what kind of transactions can be generated. Then once a block is basically the private block is constructed, it will be given to a leader in a peer-to-peer network. Then we have used the practical Byzantine fault tolerance algorithms that used as the consensus algorithms that will allow to add that block in the blockchain centers. So this is the registration phase. What we talk about that, this uses the elliptic of cryptographic techniques. Basically that each and every control room and the ground station server and drone, this is based on the certificate based techniques. The certificates are stored in the ground station server and drones, and using the certificate as well as elliptic of techniques, the certificate will be verified by each and every entity, and message will be verified here. Then at the end, they will establish a session key that is SKDR GSS, which is same as the session key computed by the GSS. This established session key between them. And this scheme is shown that this is perfect. This is very secure. It is free from replay, man in the middle attack, impersonation attacks, then privilege insider attack, and other attacks through the detailed security analysis known as the formal informal security analysis. Then let us talk about the various kind of transactions, TXI. So fast transactions could be that so let it be denoted by TX CRGSS request. It represents the transactions between control room and GSS. It is a data delivery request from control room to the GSS. And then another kind of transactions will be there GSS to drone. And in this case, data delivery request from the GSS to drone will be given for a particular flying zone to the drone. And transactions, DR GSS response, the DR will basically drone will give the data delivery or collections response from to the GSS securely. And another transactions will be there that the DR GSS data. Also, that the drone can take the surveillance data from the corresponding area. Also, that can send the information securely to the GSS. So these are the 4 types of transactions that we have considered in this work, and this will be of this form. So once we have the transactions, so let that basically that your GSS has a NT number of the TN number of transactions, and since it's the private the blockchain, so these all the transactions are encrypted using the public key of the GSS, and so that only the GSS can view it and nobody can view it. And it has a block header has a block versions, previous as blocks, marklet root, timestamp, creations of the block, that is the ID of the fellow who created, that is, for example, who GSS has created, public key of the signer known as the public key of the GSS. Then current block has as well as signature on the CB has using the elliptic of digital signatures verifications algorithms. Please note that it uses the private key of the GSS. So therefore, only the GSS can create the signatures, and nobody can create the signatures, but anybody can verify the signatures using the elliptic of digital signatures verifications algorithms. So this is a consensus algorithms that we have used. That is the modified, the improved versions of the that is the PBFT, that is practical Byzantine fault tolerance with the other things. So in this case, a leader will be selected. Let it be a GSSL is selected among the peer-to-peer network for adding a say block I. Then the leader will say generate timestamps for each follower nodes in the that is ground station node say GSS, and perform voting process. For that purpose, that it will encrypt the voting request message as well as timestamp using the public key of the other peer nodes with the GSS J, and sends a message using the containing the same block I, which is not encrypted because already data are encrypted there, signature is there, as well as that encrypted voting request and timestamp to all follower nodes. So after receiving that the message by each follower node, that is the PR nodes, will PR node will do, it will first decrypted that the voting request. Then it will get the timestamp. It will verify the timestamp whether the timestamp is valid or not. Once timestamp is valid, then it will go for verification of the Marklet wrote current hash block and signature on the reset block. And if all checks are valid, then it will give the voting reply message with the block verification status as the VV status by encrypting those fields by the public key of the leader. So the leader can only decrypt it, nobody can decrypt it. And if we have the V counted the number of valid vote counters initialized to 0, for each received message, response message of this type from the PR nodes, the leader will basically first decrypt the message, and it will validate whether the its voting request is message the given voting request or not, previous reply is valid or not, and the verification status is block verification status valid or not. If valid, then the voting counter will be incremented to by 1. And after this process, that if that number of voting count is greater than 2 if GSS +1, which is required for the practical binary controllers algorithms, then it will send the commit response message to the follower nodes, and it will add the block I in its blockchain, and as well as the other follower nodes also add the same block in their blockchains. So we have seen that shown that security analysis, replay attack, man in the middle attack, impersonation attacks, privilege insider attack, and other attacks. And most thing that this is known as the ESL attack, which basically that protected. So why that this is only I am giving here. So if you look at that here, the session key is constructed of this form. And session key constructions based on that empirical secrets known as the short-term secrets, which are the random secrets, and the long-term secrets, which are the private key and other secrets involved here. So what this attack tells that, suppose that during these competitions, so if some states of the entity is compromised, and if it reveals the random numbers, because random numbers creations are say in secret memory they are stored, and if your session key is constructed only the random secrets, then there is a high possibility that your session key will be compromised. And since we have incorporated everything that public key means permanent secrets also in the session key constructions, so even your the random secrets, temporal or short-term secrets are compromised, there is no questions of compromising the session key between the drone and GSS. Therefore, it is highly secure and it is resistant to the ESL attack. Then if you are interested here, so we have done also the formal security verifications using the software validations tool, which is known as the Avispa. All the details are available here. And also I have a code here. We have a code here. So if you are interested, you can also send me a request for this code. So what does it that we have implemented this protocol under this framework. So just like your C language programs, you are writing the programming language, then you are compiling it, you are getting the A.output file, that is assembler output file. Assembler output file when run, then it will give the output. So just like that in Avispa, we are having a language known as the high level protocol specification language known as the HLPSL language. And we implement our protocol. We have implemented our protocol in this language. Then using a translator known as the HLPSL to IF, which will produce the intermediate format, just like your assembler output. So the assembler output that just like the IF is given one of the backend. Avispa has 4 backends known as the OFMC, CLATAC, SADMC, as well as TA4FC. All details are available in this web page and documentations, and that will give the output format. And output format will basically will tell precisely whether your protocol is safe or unsafe, and if it is safe, under which conditions it is safe, and so on and so on. Okay. So let me to check whether this code could be run here or not. So I have to check it. Yeah, so this is known as the span tool. Then we have written the code. So let me to go to the code. So code is there somewhere. This is TVT paper, right? TVT paper, TVT, yeah, IoT. Avispa, this one. Is it visible to you?
No, sir. Actually, to increase the font size.
Increase the font, right? But how to increase the font? Font size is here. So I think it is visible now.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you see that we have implemented the role of the registration authority, which is responsible for, this is the role-oriented language. This is the language format that is available in the Avispa website. Then we have implemented the role of the control room. Then we have implemented the role of the ground station server, where it will receive the registration request message and reply message. Then which parameters needs to be kept secret. These are formats, and it will send a message. And after receiving message, what will do the actions, how the session will be constructed, how it is verified, everything is there. And we are having the witness and the request that is for authentication purpose. Similarly, we are having the rule for the drone is there. And these are known as the basic roles. And apart from that, we are having composite roles. Session will give the, just like your the C program main functions, it is calling every functions here. Then after that, we are having environment, and the environment session is there. So where you have to specify that what of the knowledge of the intruder knowledge, which kind of public parameters are known to the intruder. Then you are running session either parallelly or in Avispa, what is that an intruder can also play a legitimate role of a basically the party. And in order to check whether man in the middle attack or replay attack happens or not. Because that Avispa based on the Dolevio thread model, so therefore it only supports basically checking the replay and man in the middle attack using the tool. So then you have to specify that confidentiality or privacy, which parameters are kept secret to which party, adversary will not know. Then authentication, which kind of authentication we are doing. Say for example, we are checking the timestamp authentications, we are checking the random nodes authentication, everything is there. So just like that, this is the Avispa code. It is written for the entire protocol. Now, if you choose the say OFMC this one and you execute it, it will give the same result. Okay. So just like that, if you go for that, it will also give the same result. Okay. Okay. So this is all about basically known as the Avispa code, and that what we have already got in the results. So this will give actually the statistics, safe, unsafe, and if it is unsafe, then under which the things it will be safe, like that it will come. So for example, if you go to the one unsafe say result, that may be one of the example could be like this: Diffie-Hellman key exchange algorithms is unsafe against the man in the middle attack. Say that may be somewhere. Yeah. This one. Yeah. So this is a protocol. Say if you execute, it will give say unsafe result. Means it is whether it is secure or not. If it is not secure, that how that attacker I is the intruder, how intruder that change the value on the fly, so that your attack happens, and how man in the middle attack also happens in the protocol. Okay, so this is one of the very widely used powerful tool which checks whether your protocol is safe or unsafe. So for details, you can look at that. So then we have also done that something known as the computational time, measuring computational time using Miracle library. So using two platforms, so we have used one platform for the server, and we have run each and every that primitives. This is known as the time taken for the hash, time for the modular exponentiation, times for the elliptic curve point multiplications, time taken for the elliptic curve additions, time taken for the bilinear pairing, etc. Then we have measured the maximum time, minimum time. We have taken the average time. Okay. So then we have used test bed experiment using the Raspberry Pi for the drones, computing the drones computational power or cost. So we have connected the Raspberry Pi to the desktop. Then we coded that all the Miracle library functions to the Raspberry Pi. Then we ran on the Raspberry Pi, and then also we found the results which are as follows under the setting. Then we have taken the average the runtime for each server as well as Raspberry Pi as the drones. Then we basically compared with respect to the communication cost, respect to the computational cost, how much time is needed for the drone, smart drone or drone cost, all these things. Then also we have done comparative analysis study, and we have shown that our scheme performs better and superior security as compared to the other schemes. For example, replay attack, man in the middle attack, mutual authentication key agreement, impersonal attacks, malicious device deployment attack, the resilience against the physical or drone capture attack. Then we have done formal security analysis. It is shown and under the some standard CK adversary model, which is the latest adversary model rather than the Dolevy or threat model, and blah blah blah. Also, our scheme supports the blockchain based solutions to incorporate here to provide the better security. So as is the conclusion, so if you recall that in the part one, we talk about the mathematical preliminaries as well as basically on the elliptic curve crypto systems and its applications. And then in the second part, we talk about the blockchain technology, its various applications. And in the last part, we talk about a case study, basically a novel blockchain envisions secure data delivery and collection page in 5G enabled IoT environment. And for future research directions, you can have blockchain-based authentications, access control protocols to be designed. That is one of the good research area. And also the AI-based big data analytics using blockchain is also important, which is part of AI/ML security. So this is because that the heart of the AI/ML algorithms based on your data. Now, if your training data set is itself corrupt, then your predictions using AI algorithms will be wrong. Now, here, if we use the blockchain technologies, since blockchain provides the immutability, so it ensures that your data stored in the blockchain, they are not corrupted. Hence, the data forging attack is eliminated. Thus, the whatever you are doing the training on the data in the blockchain, stored in the blockchain, they are genuine, and you can always expect your correct predictions to be made by the AI/ML algorithms, because the heart of the AI/ML algorithms is based on the predictions. If predictions is incorrect, there is no use for the AI/ML algorithms. And due to that a new research area has been introduced in the community known as the AI/ML security, and which will play very active part in the research domain. Because unless your the data is secure, you can't rely on predictions of the AI/ML algorithms. So some of the references are there, so you can look at the references here. And thanks a lot for your attentions. And if you have any questions, we can take some of the questions here.
So anybody having any queries, please unmute yourself and you can ask your question. You can unmute and you can ask.
Hello, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you for a nice lecture.
yeah. Thank you.
I have one query actually.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am from electrical engineering department.
Okay.
Actually, you have mentioned one consensus algorithm that is voting based. What is
Yeah.
the name of this consensus algorithm?
That is the voting based consensus algorithms are known as the Ripple RCPA or PBFT, known as the practical Byzantine fault tolerance algorithms.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other query? Anybody having any query? Please unmute yourself and you can ask the question. So one query is from Arun Kumar. Can you
Yeah.
please tell me where blockchain cannot be or should not be used?
Yeah, that is a good question. And fortunately, each and every domain now people are using blockchain to make their data to be more secure. So hence, if you implement blockchain, either that is organized in your private blockchain or public blockchain, it will consume some resource, but it will provide the maximum level of security. So if you consider in the future generations maximum level of security, probably that after the 3-4 years, if you see that there will be revolutions of using blockchain, you will see that everywhere people are using blockchain because your data needs to be protected from enemy.
Any other queries? Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Hello.
Yeah,
Anybody
yeah.
having? Okay, raise.
Okay. So sorry for that, sir. So
Yeah.
as you have said in the last that the AI and ML can be used with the blockchain data.
Yeah, yeah.
So sir, wouldn't it take too much processing time to decrypt the data from the to convert?
No, yeah, yeah.
Actually, we cannot process the encrypted data using AI or ML, I think.
Yeah, so for example, we can have an associations with the blockchain center to another center known as the big data analytics centers. We have also worked on that things. Say for example, one of our paper that is under review, it is going to the major revision in the IEEE system journals, where we have used that concept. Yeah. So hopefully this will be accepted soon after some time. So there are 4 reviews and it is going to major revisions here. So this is on AI-enabled industrial cyber physical systems. And if you look at here, so we are having blockchain centers, and blockchain center is associated with the AI-enabled big data analytics. Now that your question is that if you process the data, that will be huge, but this processing could be done offline mode. Suppose you are having a blockchain centers and say big data analytics center decides that I want to mine our data. So therefore, it can verify each and every block in the blockchain. Then those blocks will be decrypted by the appropriate data agency. So for example, say fog server, and those data will be stored in the what is the training data set. And based on the training data set, that your AI ML algorithms will work and it will do the predictions.
Right. Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Great.
Yeah.
The answer. Thank you, sir.
One query is there.
Yeah.
What is the cost of using blockchain networks? And
The cost of blockchain networks, of course, there is a cost. There will be cost, and this cost could be not so serious because the blockchain, whatever networks is run by all the servers, very powerful servers. So therefore, if you are running say IoT device, blockchain, or drones, that will be a problem, because we are not we are already outsourcing all the computations to all the servers, for example, fog server or cloud server. So that will not be so much issue in this case. Of course, the cost involved, but due to that their high computational power, that will not be issue.
Another query is, can DES algorithm be used in blockchain technology?
So answer is no, because the we are not using any symmetric key encryptions. Here everything is public encryptions, elliptic curve system. And in order to use your symmetric encryption, that means that your key needs to be shared, and key to be shared to whom? So that is the question. So that's why it is not relevant. So ECC encryption is used because if I use my public key to encrypt the data, I can only decrypt it, nobody can decrypt it.
Another query is, please suggest some standard general for research papers.
Yeah, research papers. So better you go. I'll suggest you go to my homepage. Okay, and there are several research papers are there. Very recent research papers are there. You can get so many idea from here. Okay.
Another query is, blockchain application is possible to do in DSP processor.
That I can't tell exactly because I'm not in that field. Okay, and maybe possible. So maybe people can come up with that. Maybe possible.
Other query is it possible to use blockchain technology to secure the cloud computing?
Yeah. That is used. Blockchain based cloud computing is there. That is used. That is possible.
Okay. In CRN, to control the access of spectrum, can we use blockchain?
So what is CRN?
Arun Kumar sir, you can please unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Dr. Arun Kumar, please unmute yourself and.
Oh, cognitive radio networks. Yes. It is possible. It is possible.
Okay. From Natasha, from where we can get financial assistance for developing blockchain network?
Yeah. So that is a question. So if you want to develop, so that funding should be there from the government organizations. So that funding should come. Otherwise, if you do the academic research, either you need to get funding from government or other things. For example, we have got funding from the Ripple, so we are having blockchain centers.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for your valuable session on Internet of Drones and its utilization of blockchain in IoT. Thank you so much for being with us. Thanks a lot, sir.
Yeah, so thank you very much for your patience to listen so long lecture. And if you have any questions, anything, so you can send me a mail on my email address. So I'll be happy to answer. Okay. So thank you very much. Okay.
Welcome, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you all the participants. I'll post some important assignments for second half. You please check your WhatsApp updates after 10 minutes. Okay. Thank you all.